The chandeliers were still swaying when my daughter-in-law called me dead weight. But let me back up. The coffee was cold by the time I noticed. I'd been staring at the deed for 20 minutes. The property document I'd kept in my safe since 1987, when Eleanor and I bought the building with money we'd saved from selling our first 2 rental properties. The Harrison Center, 40,000 square feet of downtown real estate, purchased for $340,000 when the neighborhood was warehouses and broken windows. Now worth $32 million, sitting in the heart of the revitalized arts district. My son thought some tech mogul owned it. His wife Vanessa certainly did. I set the deed beside Eleanor's photograph, her at 38, standing in front of the building on purchase day, paint-stained jeans, hair in a ponytail, holding a sledgehammer. We'd spent 2 years renovating it ourselves. Eleanor designed every detail while working full-time as a school administrator. We'd rented it to artists and small nonprofits at rates they could actually afford. They think I'm just an old man taking up space, I told her, smile. My hands, 73 years of calluses and spotted skin, wrapped around the mug. These hands had torn out walls, installed plumbing, scraped floors. Eleanor beside me every evening, every weekend, believing in a vision nobody else could see. Now the building housed the Harrison Center Foundation, the charity Eleanor and I had established 40 years ago, supporting arts education for underprivileged children. My son Daniel ran it. Have for 5 years, since I'd stepped back after Eleanor died. Since I'd become, apparently, irrelevant. My phone buzzed. Vanessa, Gala tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. Try to look presentable this time. The annual fundraiser. 500 guests, black tie, celebrating the foundation's work. Celebrating Daniel's leadership, his vision, his success at growing the endowment and expanding programs. All taking place in the building his mother and I had bought, renovated, and donated to create the foundation in the first place. I dressed in my gray suit, the same one I'd worn to Eleanor's funeral, to foundation events, to every occasion requiring formality. It was clean, pressed, perfectly adequate. Vanessa had once suggested I invest in proper formal wear. I declined. The Harrison Center glowed against the evening sky. Our building, though my name appeared nowhere. Eleanor had insisted on naming it after her maiden name, saying the work mattered more than credit. Inside, the main gallery had been transformed. Ice sculptures, champagne fountains, a string quartet. White-clothed tables surrounded a small stage where Daniel would speak. The walls displayed student artwork from foundation programs, talented kids who'd never have accessed art education without Eleanor's vision. Daniel stood near the stage with Vanessa. My son wore a designer tuxedo that cost more than Eleanor and I had spent on our wedding. Vanessa glittered in a gown and jewelry that could fund a semester of classes. I made my way through the crowd, nodding to board members, declining champagne. Dad, Daniel's smile was practiced. You made it, said I would. Vanessa's eyes traveled over my gray suit with open disdain. Robert, how quaint. A cluster of donors approached, wealthy patrons, corporate sponsors, society figures. They surrounded Daniel, offering congratulations on the foundation's growth, the new programs, the expanded reach. Daniel's transformed this organization, a woman in diamonds said. Finally brought it into the modern era. The Harrison Center is doing work that actually matters now, a man in Armani added. Real impact, not just feel-good local programs. They weren't talking to me. I stood 3 feet from Daniel, but they looked through me like I was furniture. Daniel accepted their praise with rehearsed humility. Just building on what came before, he said, but his tone suggested he'd far surpassed it. Vanessa touched his arm. Tell them about the capital campaign. Ah yes. Daniel's voice carried across the group. We're raising funds to purchase the Harrison Center building. Currently we're just tenants. Owning the property would give us stability and allow us to expand significantly. My coffee from this morning turned to acid in my stomach. Purchase it from whom? A donor asked. The building's owned by a private holder, Vanessa said smoothly. Some elderly investor who's had it since the 80s. We've been negotiating, but he's being difficult. Difficult how? Another asked. Daniel sighed. Sentimental. Attached to the past. Doesn't understand the foundation's vision for the future. How much are you offering? The Armani man asked. $28 million. Extremely generous for this location. $4 million below market value. For the building Eleanor and I had poured our lives into. The old generation doesn't understand progress, Vanessa said. They hold on to things out of stubbornness, not reason. I spoke quietly. Maybe he has reasons you don't understand. Vanessa finally looked directly at me. Robert, this is a business discussion. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the refreshment tables. Polite dismissal. In front of a dozen witnesses. Daniel didn't correct her. Didn't defend me. He just shifted slightly, positioning himself to exclude me from the circle. Dad's having trouble letting go, he said to the donors, his voice carrying that patronizing tone you'd use with a confused child. He was involved in the foundation's early days. Helped my mother with the initial setup. But that was 40 years ago. The organization has evolved far beyond those humble beginnings. Beyond Eleanor's vision, I said. Mom would want us to grow, to have real impact. Daniel smiled at his audience. She'd understand that progress requires change. Sometimes that means moving past the founder's limited scope. Limited scope. Eleanor, who'd designed every program, who'd visited schools, who'd taught classes herself when we couldn't afford instructors. Vanessa leaned closer to a female donor. Between you and me, Robert's become a bit of dead weight. Daniel's too kind to say it, but the old man just takes up space at these events. Reminds everyone of when the foundation was small and scrappy, not the image we want to project now. Deadweight. The words hung in the air under the chandeliers Eleanor and I had installed ourselves. I looked at my son, at this man I'd raised, who'd sat on Eleanor's lap while she sketched expansion plans, who'd helped us paint classrooms, who'd promised at her funeral to honor her legacy. And I saw a stranger wearing my last name. Excuse me, I said. I walked toward the stage. Daniel called after me, but I didn't stop. I approached the podium, took the microphone from the startled event coordinator. Good evening, I said. I have an announcement. The gallery went silent. 500 faces turned toward me, most confused, some annoyed that I'd interrupted their champagne and networking. Daniel rushed toward the stage. Dad, this isn't. I'm Robert Whitmore, I said into the microphone. My voice, roughened by age but still strong, carried through the speakers. Some of you know me. Most of you don't. I'm the old man taking up space near the refreshment tables. Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. Daniel reached the stage. Dad, please step down. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm the co-founder of the Harrison Center Foundation, I continued, along with my late wife, Eleanor. We started this organization 43 years ago because Eleanor believed every child deserved access to art education, regardless of their family's income. I saw Vanessa moving through the crowd, her face tight with fury. Eleanor was a school administrator. She saw talented students whose potential was wasted because they couldn't afford private lessons or materials. So we started small. Weekend classes in a rented room. Eleanor teaching watercolor. Me teaching woodworking. 20 students that first year. Daniel's hand was on my arm now. This is inappropriate. We have a program. I pulled free gently but firmly. Eleanor and I bought this building in 1987. Spent 2 years renovating it ourselves. She designed every classroom, every studio space. We opened it as a nonprofit center, offering free and low-cost programs. That was the Harrison Center's beginning. I could see board members whispering to each other, the donors looking uncertain. When Eleanor died 5 years ago, I stepped back. Let my son Daniel take over as executive director. I thought that's what fathers did, make space for their children to lead. I paused. Tonight, I learned that making space became being dead weight. Gasped from the crowd. Vanessa stopped moving, her face draining of color. Daniel's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. You're ruining everything. I'm clarifying things, I said. See, Daniel's been telling donors that the foundation needs to purchase this building. That some difficult elderly investor owns it. That you need $28 million to buy it from this stubborn old man. I pulled the deed from my jacket pocket. I'm that stubborn old man. Eleanor Harrison Whitmore and I purchased this property in 1987 for $340,000. When we established the foundation, we allowed it to operate here rent-free. We never sold the building. We never transferred ownership. I unfolded the deed, holding it up. The Harrison Center building is mine. Has been for 37 years. Current market value is approximately $32 million. The gallery erupted in whispers. Daniel stood frozen beside me. So when my son asked for donations to purchase a building I already own, where does that money actually go? I looked at Daniel. Would you like to explain your capital campaign to our donors? Daniel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Vanessa found her voice from the crowd. Robert, you're confused. Daniel's campaign is legitimate. The building ownership is documented right here. I raised the deed higher. Notarized, recorded with the county, tax records current. My attorney can provide verification to anyone interested. I turned back to the crowd. I need to share something else. When Eleanor and I started the Harrison Center, we established a simple rule: 75 cents of every dollar raised goes directly to programs. Student supplies, instructor salaries, facility costs. 25 cents covers administration and fundraising. That ratio was sacred to Eleanor. I pulled papers from my other pocket, financial statements my attorney had obtained through my rights as property owner and original foundation board member. Current ratio, 42 cents to programs, 58 cents to administration. I read from the document. Executive director salary, $480,000. Assistant director, that's Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, $220,000. First class travel, luxury hotels for conferences, catered board meetings. Daniel's face had gone from pale to red. Those are industry standard compensation levels. Eleanor drew $30,000 a year, I said. She ran programs with 50 students a week. She taught classes herself. She bought supplies with her own money when the budget ran short. My voice stayed level, but it carried 40 years of memory. She believed the work mattered more than the salary. A woman in the front row, Lisa Chun, one of Eleanor's original students, now a successful artist and board member, stood up. Robert, are you saying Daniel's been mismanaging funds? I'm saying he's lost sight of why the foundation exists. I looked at my son. Eleanor didn't build this for cocktail parties and executive salaries. She built it so a kid from a poor neighborhood could learn to paint. So a teenager with talent but no resources could have a chance. Vanessa pushed through to the stage. This is slander. Daniel has grown this foundation's reach by shrinking its heart, I said. You serve 300 fewer students than when Eleanor ran it, despite having triple the budget. You've cut the free programs Eleanor prioritized. You've turned weekend open studios into invitation-only donor events. I held up another document. I have testimonials here. Families turned away because they couldn't afford the suggested donations that became mandatory fees. Talented students told the programs were full, while you hosted wine and paint nights for wealthy patrons. Lisa Chun was reading something on her phone. Robert, I'm looking at our tax filings. This ratio, he's right. When did administrative costs get so high? Other board members pulled out phones. Whispers became conversations. Daniel grabbed the microphone. Dad, you're oversimplifying complex organizational needs. I'm reading financial documents, I said. Your capital campaign to purchase a building I already own would have raised $28 million. Where was that money really going, Daniel? If for personal advancement instead. I stepped down from the stage. The crowd parted as I walked toward the exit. Behind me, Vanessa's voice rose. He's senile. This is elder abuse. Someone stop him. But no one did. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called my attorney. Harold, it's Robert. I just detonated a bomb at the Gala. I assume it went according to plan. Better. I have board volunteers already. Can you start transfer procedures tomorrow? The new foundation paperwork is ready. I'll need signatures from your initial board. Through the windshield, I watched people streaming out of the Harrison Center. Some looked angry, others animated, talking in clusters. Lisa Chin spotted my car and walked over. I rolled down the window. Robert, I'm in. Whatever you need. Her eyes were wet. Miss Eleanor taught me watercolor when I was 12. My family couldn't afford lessons. She never charged us a single dollar. When I got my scholarship to art school, she cried harder than my mother. I remember, I said. Eleanor followed your career. She had your gallery show announcements on our refrigerator. Lisa wiped her eyes. Daniel turned the foundation into a social club for rich people. The students became props. I've been wanting to say something for 2 years. Now's your chance. New board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m., my attorney's office. She nodded and walked back toward the building. I watched as she gathered other former students, other people who remembered what Eleanor had built. My phone rang. Daniel, it's honest, and it's necessary. I paused. Job pays $15 an hour, 20 hours a week. You'd work alongside student interns and volunteers. Dad, that's the offer. You want to honor your mother's memory. You do it the way she did, through actual work, not executive titles. You show up, you serve students, you remember why this matters. Daniel's hands shook around his mug. Vanessa will divorce me. Probably. I'll lose everything. You already lost everything that mattered. This is a chance to find it again. I stood and refilled his coffee. I'm not doing this to punish you, Daniel. I'm offering you what your mother would have. A chance to remember who you were before ambition made you cruel. He sat there for a long time, staring at his reflection in the dark coffee. I'll take the job, he said quietly. You start Monday, 7 a.m. Over the next 6 months, I worked with Lisa and the new board to rebuild Eleanor's vision. We started small again, 30 students and weekend classes. Free supplies. Volunteer instructors who remembered Eleanor's approach. Daniel showed up every Monday at 7 a.m. He cleaned paint brushes, mopped floors, carried supplies. He worked silently at first, avoiding eye contact with students and instructors. But slowly, I watched something change. He started talking to kids, asking about their projects, staying late to help a struggling student mix colors. One Saturday, I found him teaching a basic drawing class, filling in for an instructor who'd called in sick. He was patient, encouraging, nothing like the executive who'd focused on donor cultivation. Afterward, we had coffee in the break room. Mom used to do this, he said. Jump in wherever she was needed. I remember her teaching a sculpture class once because the instructor had the flu. She'd never done sculpture before. She learned it alongside the students. She believed in being useful, not important. I forgot that. He looked at his calloused hands, soft executive hands now roughened by honest work. I forgot a lot of things. Vanessa filed for divorce in month 4. Daniel signed the papers without contest, let her take most of their assets. He moved into a small apartment near the Harrison Center, started riding his bike to work. The foundation grew slowly. We served 100 students by month 6, then 200 by month 9. The budget was lean, but every dollar went where it should. Daniel asked to join the board. I said no. Not yet, I told him. You're still learning what this work actually requires. Ask me again in 2 years. He nodded and went back to cleaning studios. One evening, as I was locking up, I found him in Eleanor's old office, the space I'd kept exactly as she'd left it, down to her sketches still pinned to the walls. I used to think this room was sad, Daniel said, like you were living in the past. But now I understand. You weren't preserving a museum. You were protecting a blueprint. Your mother's vision wasn't old-fashioned, I said. It was timeless. I see that now. He touched one of her sketches, a classroom layout she designed for maximum student interaction. I'm sorry it took losing everything to figure it out. Sometimes that's what it takes. On the anniversary of Eleanor's death, Daniel and I visited her grave together. We brought flowers, daisies, her favorite because they were simple and cheerful. I told her I was sorry, Daniel said, for what I did to her foundation, for what I said about her vision. She knew you'd find your way back eventually. How? Because she knew you had her heart underneath all the ambition. It just got buried. I set my flowers beside his. She's proud of you now. I can feel it. We stood in silence at her grave. 2 men who'd both lost their way and found it again through her memory. The Eleanor Whitmore Arts Foundation serves 400 students now. Daniel runs the facilities department, still at barely above minimum wage, still showing up early, still doing the unglamorous work that keeps the programs running. Last week, he asked again about joining the board. Not as an executive, he said. As someone who remembers what this work costs, what it requires, what Mom believed in. I looked at my son, graying now, humble, present in ways he hadn't been for years. All right, I said. You've earned it. That evening, I sat in Eleanor's old office with coffee and her photograph. He came back, I told her. Smile. Took a while, but he remembered who he was supposed to be. The building settled around me. Our building, filled with student artwork, echoing with young voices learning what Eleanor believed they deserved to know. Some people think I was cruel, destroying my son's career over a principle. But they didn't know Eleanor. They didn't understand that she built this foundation as a promise to every child who couldn't afford a chance. That promise was worth protecting, even from her own son, especially from her own son. The deed sits in my desk drawer now, right beside Eleanor's photograph. When I'm gone, it transfers to a trust that guarantees the building's use for youth arts education in perpetuity. No one can sell it. No one can change its purpose. Daniel understands. He helped draft the trust language. Mom's vision outlasts all of us, he said when we signed it. That's how it should be. On quiet mornings, I make Eleanor's coffee and walk through the studios before students arrive. The spaces she designed, the vision she protected, the work she believed mattered more than money or status or executive titles. Her legacy isn't in granite monuments or bronze plaques. It's in the hands of a 12-year-old learning watercolor, in the eyes of a teenager discovering sculpture, in the heart of a son who lost his way and found it again by mopping floors and remembering what his mother taught him about service. That's enough. That has to be enough. And in the soft morning light with coffee warming my calloused hands, it is.